I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Around the nation, TYT Nation, welcome to the show. I am your host, Jeff Waldorf. We're going to have a great show for you guys today on this Monday afternoon. All right, so I love that intro. Lot of energy. No Jeb Bush today. I'm feeling pretty good after the weekend.
Please clap.
Yeah, I know, right? So I'm feeling good. We're going to have a good show today. We're going to talk about Nancy Pelosi's brand new nickname for Donald Trump. Oh, lovely. That's a lot of fun. We got, of course, another ad against Ivanka Trump. This is great. I like deconstructing these political ads for you guys, and from what I can tell, you enjoy it as well. So that's fun. We got Ted Cruz, crapping all over the people who are unemployed. And so we've got that discussion going on about the unemployment benefits, the extension, whether or not we're going to get into more stimulus. So we'll talk about that as well. And then we've got Joe Rogan talking about gamers. Yeah. Gamers. So as a gamer, and Joe Rogan's comments, of course, about that is, there is a lot of anger, and I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna break it down, and I'm gonna do the usual thing that I do here and give my commentary about it. As like I said, from my perspective, as somebody who enjoys and consumes lots of video game content, and from time to time even creates some. So we've got that. All around fun show. Now, if you guys want to help out and help us continue doing this show, of course, super chats are always welcome. Not only that, but you can also help us out by becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. Or, a channel member, which a lot of you have done as well. And obviously, the biggest thing, please like and share the stream. Also helps out. All right. Anyway, so I guess we'll dive into it with Nancy Pelosi. Always a lot of fun covering Nancy. As the nation deals with the fallout of the deadly coronavirus pandemic, mass protests on police brutality, and the deployment of federal troops quelling said protests, as well as an economic recession, on and on and on. We've got a lot of problems here. Nancy Pelosi decides that she's going to bring out the big guns against Donald Trump.
This president, I have a new name for him, Mr. Make Matters Worse. He has made matters worse from the start. Delay, denial, it's a hoax, it'll go away magically, it's a miracle, and all the rest. And we're in this situation that you spelled out some of the numbers very clearly early. So it makes matters worse. Now then we'll send our children to school.
Mr. Make Matters Worse. Got it. Nailed him. Look, okay. So let's break it down. Substantively, of course, she's right. Donald Trump has what I like to call the reverse Midas touch. Basically, everything that Donald Trump touches falls to shit. Like literal feces, turds, okay? So, look, at the core of it, yeah, Donald Trump makes things worse. Yes. And look, the only reason that this country hasn't essentially descended into full-out fascism is because the United States, we actually do have some pretty strong institutions. If we did not have the strong institutions, if we were not that strong of a country, well, then we would be in literal fascism, of course, led by Donald Trump and the Republican Party. So let's be honest about that, right? And as I've said before, Donald Trump is not the cause of the disease. He is a symptom of the disease. He is a symptom of decades of neoliberal economics, neocon policies, corporate influence peddling within Congress, a lot of which Nancy Pelosi is kind of involved in as well. And so, yes, you take an already fundamentally flawed system and you add a populist or faux populist from the right wing, and this is what you get, Mr. Make Matters Worse. All right. So that said, right? Again, she is right about Donald Trump. Really, though, I think my biggest criticism here is, okay, second biggest criticism here is that she's just not going to go ham on Donald Trump. I would really like to see that. Just like, what do you really think, Nancy? I mean, yeah, you're much more vicious when you're fighting against Medicare for all than you are Donald Trump. So I would really like to see what you really think, right? Pelosi couldn't call Trump F up, man. I mean, that would be better. That would be much better. And so, again, that's not even my main substantive criticism. No, I would actually like to see Nancy Pelosi not vote for Donald Trump's war budget. That would be nice. Or at the very least, support very sensible pieces of legislation or amendments in this case, such as the Bernie Sanders amendment to cut 10% off the Pentagon. I mean, just 10%. Or at least I'd like to see her admit that, oh, right, voting to give Donald Trump more executive power when it comes to war and to give him and the Pentagon so much more money. Maybe those were bad votes. Maybe. That would be nice. But no, she's not going to do that. And this is really why the resistance is a joke to leftists. This is why we criticize her. Because it seems to be all about slogans, right? You spout off slogans, you come up with cheesy little nicknames that are just laughable, right? Very, very laughable. And then you get the pretending to be woke, but not actually fixing or pushing to fix underlying issues of the day. And so, for example, the fact that, millions of people don't have employer-sponsored healthcare because, well, they're laid off. They lost their jobs. Well, what are we doing about that? What is Nancy Pelosi doing about that? Oh, no, we're going to extend COBRA. You might as well just get us all bitten by cobras because that's what's going to happen, right? We're just going to die anyway because we don't have healthcare because we can't afford healthcare. And you're saying, oh, no, let's expand COBRA to people, which is 100% basically unaffordable, especially if you've lost your job. It's hard enough to afford COBRA when you do have a job that doesn't offer you health insurance. So, I mean, it's utterly ridiculous to go and support those kinds of policies and say that, oh, no, it's him. He's not making anything better. Sure, he may be making things worse, but you ain't making anything better, Nancy. And that's one of the big problems. I know. You have the banners for Medicare for All somewhere stashed in your basement. I get it. Maybe it's stashed alongside being able, the ability to be able to make decent nicknames. Just saying. All right. But again, the resistance is a joke. I mean, it's a bad joke. It's not actually a resistance movement. Look, ripping up his speech and then voting for an expansion of Donald Trump's war powers is not a good thing. That's not a great look for somebody who, in her words, who goes after Donald Trump for making things worse. You're making things worse by giving Donald Trump more money and more power. But then again, of course, when it comes to bombing brown people in other countries, which we're still doing amid a global pandemic, Pelosi, ironically, is making matters that are already bad that much worse. A humanitarian disaster combined with a global pandemic. And you're doing so by continuing to fund it and therefore tacitly endorsing it and supporting it. And that's my big problem with the Democrats. What are they getting from helping Donald Trump fund the Pentagon with billions more dollars by giving him more power, by giving him more executive power, and making our foreign policy situation that much worse? What does she get from it? Well, the answer to that, of course, is money. Follow the money, as always. Look, a lot of Democrats admittedly get their money from defense contractors. And look, most of all the politicians actually get a lot of money from defense contractors. Why? It's because they're all located in Virginia. I mean, Washington, D.C. is a home of the headquarters of major defense contractors. And so they're constantly there. They're constantly lobbying for more money, for more money to go into their pockets. And of course, there's this entire narrative there that really a lot of the Democrats, unfortunately, have really bought into. Like, oh, no, you don't understand. We have to continue funding and shoveling more and more money towards the Pentagon, even though we have the most well-funded military on Earth. In fact, we give more money to the military than the budgets of entire countries, just to the military. And not only that, but to the police forces. For example, New York City's police budget, $6 billion. Again, larger than some small nations. So come on, man. Like, yes, it's because of the lobbying. It's because of the money. What we should be doing, of course, is defunding the Pentagon by at least half, in my opinion, right? Barbara Lee's proposal to do that, to cut 50% out of the Pentagon budget, which, by the way, we would still have the most well-funded military in the entire world, got completely ignored. And then even the Sanders-Markey amendment, right, which was, again, a modest 10% cut in the Pentagon budget. Again, this was just money that funding that Donald Trump himself added to the military, right? Even that was rejected. Some 77 senators voted against it. That's about half the Democratic caucus that basically rejected that. I mean, that's amazing. That said, look, we can talk about the Republican plan for coronavirus, which is basically, if you get sick, die fast. And that's the old Alan Grayson quote, but it actually works really well here. But we don't talk enough about the Democrats' plan. What's the Democrats' plan? What's Joe Biden's plan to deal with coronavirus when he gets into office? Now, he says all these platitudes about like, oh, well, we're going to listen to the science. Okay, well, are you going to close down the schools? What are you going to do for people who are working? What are you going to do for essential workers, right? Are you going to guarantee health care for everyone so that, if you get coronavirus and go to the hospital and need some serious care, you don't come out with a $1.1 million hospital bill, which we have seen before? What are you going to do about that? Are you going to push for rent cancellation? You going to push for that? Or what about a UBI, $2,000 a month until the crisis is over, till we return to pre-coronavirus levels? Are you going to do that? No. Are you going to cancel student loans? No. He only said that he'd cancel up to about $10,000, which basically covers interest on some of the bigger loans. So, yay. Yeah, it might be better than what Donald Trump is offering, but it's still not a whole lot. And so all you can really say is that, sure, Biden and the Democrats really aren't going to make the situation worse, but they're really not going to make it all that much better either. I mean, yes, technically it will be better, but the problem is that it's very small, it's very marginal, and this is at a time where what we need is bold initiatives to deal with this crisis and deal with it in the correct way. And unfortunately, as long as people like Nancy Pelosi continue to be in power, we're not going to get any sort of bold action. And so we're going to continue to stumble and stutter and suffer, and the economy and everyone else is going to end up paying for it. All right. Speaking of the economy here, we'll get to the next story. All right. There's some comments that I actually want to read as well. Goku just saying says, half the Democrats are sheep for the military, just follows their designated path to destruction. Unfortunately, yes, a lot of Democrats are owned by the military-industrial complex. That's why we shouldn't have a military-industrial complex. Just saying. All right. Let's see. A couple more here. Is it acting on the science, not just listening to the scientists? Let's see. It's a 10% cut. I accidentally stumbled on a right-wing piece against the 10% cut from defense. It was characterized as reckless and would lead to doom and gloom. Wow. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Conservatives are scared of everything. Like, I've never seen a group that is more fearful. Like, oh my God, the Muslims are coming. They're going to come to get us. Like, they're flowing over the border. No, they're not. Mexico's literally saying, America, stay the hell out of our country. Canada's like quietly over here building a wall of themselves. While, of course, Donald Trump's wall, and that was a story that I didn't get to today. The part of Donald Trump's wall literally blew down. So that's always fun. Or was it that private wall that they were making? One of those things. All right. Anyway. Let's move on. Let's go to Ted Cruz.
Problem is, for 68% of people receiving it right now, they are being paid more on unemployment than they made in their job. And I'll tell you, I've spoken to small business owners all over the state of Texas who are trying to reopen, and they're calling their waiters and waitresses, they're calling their busboys, and they won't come back. And of course they won't come back because the federal government is paying, in some instances, twice as much money to stay home.
But you're open to a lesser amount?
All right, so that was Ted Cruz kind of accidentally making the case that maybe we should have higher wages. I mean, you know, that would be one good takeaway from that, but there's plenty more. So now let me give you some context into this. Now, this happened during an interview with CBS's Margaret Brennan, who, as you saw, was pushing Ted Cruz in the additional $600 federal benefit to unemployment. That runs out at the end of the month. That whole thing was part of the CARES Act, which, by the way, the irony here is he's complaining about the $600, but what about the trillions of dollars that went to private corporations? Ted's corporate donors. They got a lot of money from the CARES Act. Fascinating. In fact, most of that legislation was a gigantic giveaway to the rich. Even Kanye West got Paycheck Protection Program funding. Which, by the way, if you don't fire anybody, that loan turns into a grant, and it's basically free money. Another person, Elon Musk. Elon Musk earlier had just a disastrous take, where he's like, "Well, we shouldn't give people welfare anymore." Really? You just got a ton of corporate welfare, Elon. Yeah. All right. So now, not only that, but you're at Jeff Bezos during making billions of dollars during the pandemic and not really paying any taxes. But no, the real problem is people in Texas not wanting to go back to work in the midst of a pandemic whose hotspots are Arizona, Florida, and yes, Texas. Oops. By the way, his argument really isn't true. Now he says, "Oh my God, they're trying to call these people back to work, and they're saying no because the government's paying them to sit on their ass." I mean, and that's why we can't have an economic recovery, even though people want to get back to work. Wait a minute. He said in a different part of that interview, I don't remember if that was in the clip itself, right? But he said, Americans, we want to get back to work, but it's this benefit. But then you also turn around and say, well, the benefit is what's keeping people home. Again, not true at all. If your employer lays you off, right, because of coronavirus, which has happened to a lot of people, and then they decide, okay, the state says that we can open, at half capacity. All right, we're going to call back some of our servers, some of our waitresses, or busboys, whatever, cooks, obviously, and bring some of them back to work. You know what, Bob? We tried calling all of our servers. Nobody wants to come back because that damn government is paying them $600 extra in unemployment. But that's not true, because if you actually do refuse employment, according to the rules of signing up for unemployment, if you deny it, that job callback, you don't get unemployment anymore. Well, they say, well, you refused a job offer, so you're cut off. Because unemployment is supposed to only protect people who, are laid off or unemployed or lost their job, whatever. In these kinds of circumstances, that's what unemployment insurance is for. And this federal benefit is just to help people weather coronavirus. And so that additional benefit should be going to these busboys, these waiters, and waitresses and all that, the wait staff and everybody else who's been affected by this, in order to help them not only get through, but allow them to, once the economy opens back up, to increase their spending and really get the gears of the economy moving again. And Ted Cruz is against that because, well, he'd rather have, I guess, all this money go to his corporate donors and not to people who actually need it, because I think he sees them as lesser, as not deserving. And so I think that's the case. But so now, again, I've explained how the system works. So Ted Cruz is lying, gaslighting, trying to push people back to work in the middle of a pandemic that is growing in his state. But that's who Ted Cruz is. We know that. This is who he is. He doesn't really care about the workers. And by the way, the Republican proposal for this is not to completely take away the federal benefit, but to cut benefits to 70% of their wages, meaning that the wait staff will still get less money, a lot less money, which is going to be a disaster for the economy, right? And not only that, but it's going to force these people back to work to make money for the company. So there's a lot of things wrong with Ted's calculation, right? For one, most people are not actually ready to go back to work. So let me give you some findings from a recent Gallup poll, right? Put out earlier this month on coronavirus. Now, the poll asks a ton of questions, right? One of them is, how long do you think the level of disruption occurring to travel, work, school, and public events in the U.S. will continue before it starts to improve? So basically, how long you think this is going to last, right? This economic downturn, this shutdown, right? Only 7% said a few more weeks. 17% said a few more months, a little bit more optimistic. For the rest of the year, 36% of respondents said that, and 40% said longer than this year. So roughly, you have 76% of Americans saying it's going to at least last to the end of the year or even longer. We expect this disruption to last quite some time, right? So again, Americans are expecting to deal with this for a while. And so the next question is relevant, right? So on the issue of staying home, to kind of frame this in context, so you want people to stay home during a pandemic, right? So they asked, well, what's a greater threat to America right now? 54% said coronavirus, and 47% said the economic shutdown, right? So again, to kind of frame that in context, right? Generally, it's fairly close to even. People are like, coronavirus is pretty, is a threat to the American life, threat to America, as is the economic shutdown. Both of them are really significant problems. But Americans, according to this next question, are still unequivocal. For the most part, they said, well, even though that, the economy, it's a huge problem. It's a great threat to America, and it's going to take some time. And we would still rather, 68% of Americans said we would rather stay home. Now that's even when you look at the question that was asked. They asked, which of these do you think is better advice right now for people who do not have symptoms of coronavirus and are otherwise healthy? To stay home as much as possible, to avoid contracting or spreading the coronavirus, or to lead their normal lives as much as possible and avoid interruptions to work and business. So basically, stay home, interrupt business, even though we know 47% of Americans say economic shutdown is a threat to America. Still, 68% of them say, stay home, stay home. I mean, again, you should probably stay home. Not only that, but a full 75% of Americans do not want that $600 benefit cut. So the people do not agree with Ted Cruz or the Republicans on this issue. They say, stay home, do the masks and social distancing. Yes, we know the economy is a problem, and it is going to harm. It is a big threat to America. But even knowing that, we still say, give the $600 benefits, let people stay home until we have found a vaccine, until we have controlled this pandemic. And again, I'm going to give you the numbers on that. And so, look, the only way that we're going to get back to work, right, that we're going to get back to a semblance of normal is to wait out the virus until we have a vaccine or until we've actually done the social distancing and all that in order to, lower the amount of cases, right? So that, again, wear masks, social distancing, do all that stuff until things kind of get a lot better when it comes to controlling the virus. Now, if that, of course, is difficult, that's not an easy thing. And yes, it's going to be costly for the economy. I get that. Within a few months, though, experts do say that we should have this under control. And that's it. And then we can put this behind us and we can actually get back to rebuilding the economy. Now, unfortunately, most politicians, they're not ready to do that. They're not willing to do that because really, they're only really concerned about their next election cycle and the money that they get from their corporate donors. These companies do not make money if you are sitting home. They think that if they open up, there are going to be people that flood in. Some of that will happen. Some people, will definitely leave their homes and go frequent these restaurants. But I think most people will continue to do takeout. They'll continue to either do fast food or stay home because they don't want to get themselves or their family members sick. And so that said, let me give you the last numbers on this. They asked if there were no government restrictions and people were able to decide for themselves about being out in public. So this is a conservative position, right? Get rid of all the restrictions, let people outdoors, right? How soon would you return to your normal day-to-day activities? Right now, after the number of new cases declines significantly, after there are no new cases in the U.S. for a period of time, or after the coronavirus vaccine is developed? Well, let me give you the numbers. 27% of people would immediately go back to doing their normal life. 25% would say after the new cases decline. 28% said after no new cases, and 21% said after we have a vaccine. And so you have nearly 3/4 of the American people that are saying, let's wait. Let's wait before we get back to normal. Let's wait until the cases go down. And of course, I think that's part of the decision by the Trump administration to no longer give the CDC data, right? To take it over, to give it to the DHS instead, And already you can start to see some of the numbers mysteriously flatline. Weird how that's working out. But look, overall point is the American people still do not agree with Ted Cruz. And so, as usual, it's shown that he is once again serving his donors and not the people. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back. We've got Joe Rogan. So I'm going to talk about that and video games. Then we've got Tom Cotton, and then that anti-Trump ad that just eviscerates Ivanka. Good stuff. All right. So stay right here. I'll be back in a minute. Super chats, patrons, channel members, all that right after the break. Around the nation.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Please clap.
Mike Pounds.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Welcome back to the show. Round the Nation right here. TWT Nation. Jeff Walder here with you. All right, so sorry for the long break. I actually had lost my patrons and channel members, so I had to go find them again. All right. So, anyway, speaking of patrons and channel members, I just want to give a shout out to Handy Hippie and Peter. Oh boy. Oh boy. That's a difficult one. Jasunski? Not sure. But I tried. So thank you anyway for becoming a patron. Channel members Marissa Torres and Jafar Ayesh. So thank you. A little bit easier on the names. All right. Super chats here. Torn Tokorora says, oh golly gosh, Nancy, my virgin ears have never such heinous words. I do declare. Drumpf has the Sadim touch, opposite of the Midas touch. Well, that's only if you reverse it, man. I still like to call it the shit touch because, yeah, everything Donald Trump touches turns to shit. All right. Let's see. Mercado. Jeez, man. I've never heard of Don Machi Memoria freeze 12 to 16 hours. So good. Oh, good. At least you give yourself some time to sleep. That helps. Happy Dude. Hey, congratulations, Happy Dude. For quitting smoking. That's great. It's going to do amazing things for your health. So, from what I hear. So, awesome. Congratulations. And thank you for the super chat. Anonymous says Trump's reverse Midas touch would actually explain why Ivanka is such a crap human being. We'll get to Ivanka. Oh, believe me. All right. So, I am indeed a butcher of names. It should be one of my, I don't know, things that I'm infamous for. If I ever do get famous or infamous, it'll be for that. All right. Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has some advice for people who like video games. Stop playing them and go do something useful.
And video games are a real problem. They're a real problem. You know why? Because they're fun.
Addictive.
And you don't, yeah. Well, I have a real problem with them. And you do them, and they're real exciting, but you don't get anywhere.
Right.
It's like you could do like martial arts, right? You could learn jujitsu. You get obsessed by jiu-jitsu, and then 3 years later, you're like an elite jiu-jitsu athlete. You're entering in competitions. You're a purple belt.
You're moving up.
Yeah, you're doing well. Right. You're thinking like, I might be able to open my own school one day.
You got confidence.
Yeah, if I have 100 students and those 100 students are paying me X amount of dollars per month, I can make a living. Holy, I can have this would be amazing. And then you see your jiu-jitsu school, and your jiu-jitsu instructor has all these students and drives a Mercedes, and he's got a nice family, and like, that's the future. This way you're doing something exciting and fun, and you don't. Or you could just be playing video games. 3 years later, you could be that same kid just playing video games, waiting for the next whatever the game is, next Xbox game to come out, and you're gonna waste your time.
Okay, boomer. No, I'm telling you that's probably the biggest boomer take I've ever seen. I mean, look, obviously, I got a lot to say about this because I am a gamer. And then, just addressing the last part, where it's like, you can just do it. What a waste of time. It's my time to waste. Get off my nuts. All right? So, look, here's the thing, right? Games are fun. Games are exciting. He admits that, right? And he's like, yeah, I got a problem with games. They're fun and exciting. But then, of course, they're nothing useful, right? And so there's that contradiction. I mean, they're fun and exciting, but you should probably do something like MMA, which is fun and exciting, instead of playing video games. Well, look, I got nothing wrong with people doing MMA, right? And for me, look, I'm a gamer. I play video games. they're, to me, are fairly mindless entertainment. I mean, not entirely mindless. There's some strategy, there's tactics, there's team building. For example, PUBG, Player Unknown Battlegrounds, right? Like, yeah, you build a team and you do strategy and you strategize on how to try to win. Now, I suck at it. I get owned at PUBG all the time. Nonetheless, right? It's still fun. And so, like any hobby or any activity, you're going to get out what you put in, right? So now, look, if Rogan wants to make the point like, oh, MMA, it's exercise, discipline, it's good for your body. Wonderful. You're absolutely right. Those would be fantastic points, right? You didn't make that point. You're like, well, I mean, you could become a jiu-jitsu master in 3 years. No, there's no guarantee that you'll be a jiu-jitsu master. You could be doing it for 3 years and still be good or decent, but not great. Definitely not a master, probably not somebody who's going to open up their own school, right? So what he's talking about is like a 1 in a million thing, or maybe 1 in 1,000, something like that, right? Okay. Hey, great. Yes, that can happen for some people, but for most people, that's not going to happen. And look, some people are not going to be interested in martial arts either. Maybe they just rather sit down and play a video game. Just saying. So now the other thing with Rogan's argument, right, is talking about like the illusion, I guess, to getting addicted to video games. Now, I know when people say that, it's like, oh, come on, man, you get addicted to video games? Well, now think about it. I mean, you can basically become, and I actually really hate using the word addicted because it has a certain connotation like, oh, if you stop doing it, you're going to have all these negative, negative things that happen to you, like withdrawals or anything like that. No, that's not the case here, right? So when he says addicted, it seems like a pretty bad misnomer, right? And so I don't like it, right? But generally, if you're saying, hey, you're getting too involved in something like a hobby that to the detriment of the rest of your life, okay, well, that's a problem. Like you can get too involved in trading cards, Magic the Gathering, spend loads of money on Yu-Gi-Oh cards, whatever, right? And you could do that at the detriment of other things. Or you could be like a rich person and hoard wealth to the detriment of society. The thing is, any hobby or anything can become a problem if you don't take it in balance, right? There's nothing wrong with, working and playing some video games in your free time, doing a little bit of exercise. Maybe you want to take a jiu-jitsu class or a martial arts class, on the side, whatever. Good balance. Everything is about balance in your life. So now I think that Rogan kind of told on himself a little bit, right? So he said, look, they're fun, they're exciting, but they're a problem, right? Maybe he's saying they're a problem for me because I get addicted to it. Well, maybe he's got an addictive personality. Somebody who dives right into a hobby, goes into it full force, and then does suffer maybe some negative effects. If there are negative effects associated with it. With gaming, of course, it's, not getting a lot of exercise. Maybe not spending enough time with your significant others. So your physical relationships may suffer. So there are, of course, negative impacts to that. There's also positive impacts, right? Again, team building, that's a good thing. Socializing. Yes, you can socialize online. I know it's a weird concept for some people, but you do. And then there's also, of course, helping things like reaction time, spatial acuity, all that stuff, right? And so, like I said, you've got to just have things in balance. So now I do know somebody who describes himself as having an addictive personality as well. It's Kyle Kalinske. So, we've had conversations and we've talked about this. And he said, look, I'm addicted to covering news and politics. Like it's part of my daily routine. I go in, and the first thing I do when I get up is I check the news, what's going on. And so that's actually a benefit to him when it comes to a show. He's massively successful on YouTube, and a great debater, a smart guy. I don't agree 100% with him, of course, but on everything, but generally a pretty smart guy, right? And so he's very dedicated to his craft. I think that possibly a negative impact of that could be like you spend all your time online. I mean, Hassan Piker streams 10 hours a day. And he always talks about like, burnout, like, I'm exhausted and I'm addicted to streaming. And so there are the negative impacts that you have in your life, lack of exercise, feeling burnt out all the time, mental fatigue, talking about this stuff. And so I totally understand. And again, it's they could be doing much, much worse things for sure. But just like generally try to keep things in balance, a good balance of things. And so anyway, now Rogan, again, made a pretty bad example here, right? And I addressed this earlier. Oh, boy, you could be a very successful person if you do MMA. So you're ignoring people who stream on Twitch? Again, the aforementioned example, Hassan Piker, very successful on Twitch. And you have people, gamers on Twitch they do make him a lot of money. And of course, he addresses that later on. So, I mean, did you just defeat your own example? There are streamers, but see, the same thing is, I'm not saying that like, oh, everybody who plays video games online is a streamer could be a successful streamer as well. Just like the same example of the MMA person going and learning jiu-jitsu for 3 years, opening up his own school. That doesn't happen for everybody. And you know what? Sometimes people just want to sit down and play a goddamn video game to relieve some stress or to do some escapism or just because they find it fun. So if MMA is fun, do it. If streaming Twitch is fun, then do it. All I'm saying is healthy balance. And please, for the love of God, stop shitting on other people's hobbies, on the things they find fun, just because you're not into it. Okay? The gaming community deals with enough toxic bullshit from within. It doesn't need any more antagonism from the outside. Okay? All we want to do, a lot of us gamers, is we want to hang out with our friends online, coronavirus and all. We want to get away from the world for a little while, right? Play with some friends and just have a good time and just enjoy a medium that does tell engaging and fun stories. Just let people enjoy things, Joe. That's all I'm asking. All right. It's a pretty simple concept here. Just let people enjoy shit. All right. Tom Asma says playing games for good for a doctor who performs orthoscopic surgery. I don't know. I mean, hand-eye coordination is another thing, I guess. All right. Moving on here. Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, once again, has revealed who he really is. Now, this was in a recent interview with the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Cotton called slavery a necessary evil. So now let me put it in context, right? Because that's the thing that Tom Cotton or any of his defenders can be like, no, you're taking it out of my context. All right. So on Thursday, Tom Cotton introduced legislation to stop the use of federal funds to teach something called the 1619 Project. So what is that? Like if you listen to Fox News, it's like some conservative or some, concerted effort to destroy American history and make us, America seem like it's a racist hellhole. Not true, actually. So now the 1619 Project was basically developed by the New York Times back in 2019 with the goal of re-examining the legacy of slavery in the United States. Now, it argues against the notion that the history of the United States began in 1776, but in 1619, when the first transatlantic slave ships entered North America. So basically saying that the transatlantic slave trade and the history of African chattel slavery were actually a large historical factor in the creation of the United States. So where's the lie, right? And obviously, this is a lot more nuance, I think, than Tom Cotton is accustomed to. But let's try to figure it out, right? So now, the wealth derived from enslaved free labor in the colonies was actually a big factor in America and the South. In fact, it's a big factor in leading up to the creation of things like the Electoral College, for example, right? Where slave-owning states, they realized that, well, if their black populations were counted in the census as full human beings or given electoral rights in order to vote, that they would be at a massive disadvantage in a direct democracy. And so instead, that was given to electors. Part of the Electoral College was one of those things that was a compromise by the northern abolitionist states that preferred a direct democracy. So there's that, right? Not only that, but look, you've still got impacts of the legacy of slavery that are instilled today. In fact, the modern police officer, right, is actually an offshoot of or a direct descendant of the slave patrols. Their main mission was to go and catch runaway slaves. And our police forces developed from that. And they still seem to have some sort of a thing. No, all right. But anyway, Tom Cotton, however, would disagree with all that and called it a liberal plot. In his legislation, which is ironically called the Saving American History Act of 2020, would prohibit the use of federal funds to teach the 1619 Project by K through 12 schools or school districts. Now, why is that? Well, Cotton says the entire premise of the New York Times factually historically flawed of the 1619 Project is that America is at root a systemically racist country to the core and irredeemable. Well, that's like your opinion, man. That sounds less of like a, oh man, this is a concrete reason why we should not send funding for this project, and more of a, I don't like this. It's bad. Okay. He also said, and by the way, it's a false assertion, but we'll get to that. He said, I reject that root and branch. America is a great and noble country founded on the proposition that all mankind is created equal. We've always struggled to live up on that promise. Well, at least he admits that. But no country has ever done more to achieve it. What about other countries that outlawed slavery before we did? Did they just not count? He added, we have to study the history of slavery and its role and impact on the development of our country, because otherwise we can't understand our country. Okay. As the founding fathers said, it was the necessary evil upon which the Union was built, but the Union was built in a way, as Abraham Lincoln said, to put slavery on the course to its ultimate extinction. But actually, no, that's not necessarily how that played out. Okay. This seems like he's trying to whitewash this, the history of this country. So now, for one thing, the 1619 Project doesn't say what he thinks it's saying. Is America's founding deeply rooted in racism? Yeah, it kind of is. But that doesn't mean the country is irredeemable. In fact, when you realize that fact and you own up to it, that's the first steps to basically fixing those inequalities and redeeming that past. I mean, for example, right? Look at Germany. Look at how Germany has dealt with and reconciled with its past when it comes to history of Nazism, right? They don't have statues of Heinrich Himmler, Adolf Hitler, or Erwin Rommel, or any of those guys, right? But in America, we've got statues of Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis, and of course, military bases named after Confederate generals like John Bell Hood. Isn't anybody else find that a little strange? Again, these guys fought on the side of let's keep people as slaves, as human property. And yet Tom Cotton's over here like, necessary evil. No, it wasn't. No, the whole thing about slavery, right, is that this was just a way to justify white wealthy people, landowners. It was a way to justify their exploitation of free black labor so that they can, of course, reap the benefits of that labor. That's what slavery was to them. It was free labor. And they, to justify this, used ridiculously false, bullshit reasons to excuse it. And then when a lot of people, especially after the revolution, that's when the abolitionists really started to push the issue, said, look, we can't have this anymore. We cannot. We're supposed to be founded on freedom and democracy, but, we're not doing that, obviously, maybe we should do something about that. These people are the same ones that said, oh no, we're going to try to secede from America and create our own country in order to preserve this institution. And that's what Tom Cotton is doing. He's trying to excuse it. And what he's trying to do is to preserve this childlike, whitewashed view of history where our founders were essentially infallible. At least that there were these amazing, wonderful people, and they have very little faults except for that little thing over there. But let's not forget about that, right? Let's just forget. Let's just move on from that. Let's not forget. Let's not deal with that. No, in reality, the founding fathers are pretty complex people. They had good and bad traits and beliefs. On the one hand, of course, they are the product of the Enlightenment and brought a lot of that to the United States in the founding of the United States. But on the other hand, they also, some of them were brutal slave owners. Yeah. So these people are not perfect. And like anyone, and they shouldn't be, and this is the problem, right? They shouldn't be revered blindly. Their contributions to creating this nation should absolutely be learned about and studied and even respected, right? But their history and the bad stuff that they've done shouldn't be erased in order to line up with somebody's narrative. And this is the real reason Tom Cotton doesn't want the schools to teach this, right? Because once you realize the reality of chattel slavery and how prevalent and how big of an impact it had on the founding of this country and the effects that it still has today, you would want to challenge that system. You would just want to. A system that has disadvantages for black people and advantages for white people that were baked in. Look, it may not be, it's not our fault, it's not my fault that it's baked into that system before I was born, but it certainly is on me to do something about it. I mean, we have a justice system right now where black people are arrested more often and punished more harshly than white people for the same crimes. The over-policing of minority areas, of course, leading to more arrests. You also have the shootings of unarmed black men that are disproportionately high for their population. You have other things, discrimination when it comes to hiring. You have the practice of redlining, and you also have the racist stereotypes against black people and welfare. Basically, this information runs counter to the narrative and the policy positions of people like Tom Cotton, who want to chuck out all the nuance of the past and only paint and venerate the founders like you would a religious figure, like modern day Jesus, right? Which makes sense if you know Tom Cotton. Okay. So now this got some pushback here from Nicole Hannah-Jones, who was awarded this year's Pulitzer Prize for commentary for her introductory essay to the 1619 Project. She said on Friday that Cotton's bill, quote, speaks to the power of journalism more than anything I've ever done in my career. She also tweeted on Sunday that if chattel slavery, heritable, generational, permanent, race-based slavery, where it was legal to rape, torture, and sell human beings for profit, were a necessary evil, as Tom Cotton says, it's hard to imagine what cannot be justified if it is a means to an end. And that is the problem, right? Justifying, the means, or using the means to justify the end, or something. Using the end to justify the means. So, look, she's 100% right. Okay. She also added, imagine thinking a non-divisive curriculum is one that tells black children the buying and selling of their ancestors, the rape, torture, and forced labor of their ancestors for profit. Oh, I'm sorry. I already read that. And she added, so the slavery foundational to the union on which it was built, or nah, you heard it from Tom Cotton himself. So, look, 100%. And just imagine what the white kids are going to learn, too. If you actually expose them to that horrific history, then, yeah, it's going to get them thinking, going, wait a minute here. There was a time where, I wouldn't be sitting next to the black kid in class, but they would be enslaved. That's insane. And it would get people, again, to want to change that system. And so, it's amazing that people like Tom Cotton not only are congressmen, but want to just ignore that history just because it's bad. Yeah, it's bad, which is why we actually shouldn't ignore it, which is why we actually should do stuff about it. And so talking about, noble, right? And that's this entire thing, this language, right? Used by Cotton and the rest of these people is that, oh no, the United States throughout an entire history has had a noble cause. Not necessarily. I mean, look at right now in the context of now. So noble that we can't give everyone health care in America, that we can't, give everyone clean drinking water, which disproportionately, again, affects poor and minority areas, right? Can't even do that. Where a man can make $13 billion in a single day, while 11 million people face the possibility of being evicted during a pandemic. Once again, the most are affected are minorities. And so you want to talk about noble. We weren't really all that noble then, and really not now. We can do much better in this country, I think, and we should absolutely try to do better. All right. Let's do the Ivanka story real quick. I know a lot of you are really asking for it. A devastating new political ad against Ivanka Trump has dropped, and it's awesome.
Criteria, move through our phases.
That is not it. That is definitely not it. All right, hold on a second. That is really strange. Okay. Let me
Some
fix
of the
that.
industries a little.
Okay. Oh, I don't have the video. Oops. All right, sorry guys. I don't actually have the video. I don't know where it went to. So, looks like I'll have to do that later. Whoops. All right, that sucks. Thought I had the video queued up and ready. Nope. I'll have to do it like later on offline. It's one of those days. All right, guys. Sorry. Massive fail. But what are you going to do? All right. So that's it. Thank you guys for going around the nation with me today. Check it out. I'll probably do it when I later on, and we'll do that. So check it out. I'll post it up online, so don't worry. That's it. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Thank you for the super chats. Let's see. LL says slavery was a necessary evil, says the descendant of slave owners. Absolutely. That's the hypocrisy for you. All right. That's it. We'll see you guys later. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys later. Just pushing buttons at this point.
Please clap. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.